Let's see.
Bro, that is a dope hoodie.
Thank you. It's actually it's a long sleeve T-shirt, and I have a hoodie on underneath it. But it is, yeah. There's got Gojira, and I've got
Godzilla!
it's kind of hard to see on screen, but I've got Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, and Mothra here up the sleeve.
It's like you're describing tattoos up your arm.
Yeah, right. Someday I will.
You would be the person to have a Godzilla tattoo.
Oh, it's in the
Hands
works.
down.
It's in the works with my
It's in
friend.
the works.
With my friend Misha, who did the he did all the like glass animals that are on my forearm. So
Nice.
neat.
That's sick.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone.
To the one about Godzilla movies. That's
Hey,
Bryan
you got it first
Spar.
try. Hey, that's me.
And he's not even going to introduce me.
One,
That's
the other
great.
one.
The
other one there
doesn't even matter. No, it's your show. It's fine. It's your show. So we're doing this.
So say my name.
We're doing this because Bryan has been my nemesis since he was at least like 11, and he has never seen any of the Godzilla movies up until we started this podcast. And so with one notable exception, which would be the film that we're watching tonight. He has seen it previous to our endeavor.
It's true.
But I have seen every movie multiple times, especially the older 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, like Toho stuff. I've seen too many times to count. Yeah, so I that was a realization that was brought to my attention somehow, and I think I just made a comment to you that I was like watching through them because there was a collection in an app that I use for streaming, and like you were like, oh, I've never seen any of them, and I was like, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. So, and eventually kind of came into my head that we should do a podcast, and so here we are, episode 5.
It really didn't take much to tip the scale either, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember saying like, yeah, sometime I think I'll watch through them, and then you're like, I have a podcast idea, and I was like, I'm in.
I guess eventually I'll watch through them is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we jump too far in, or any more than that, I do want to get the stuff out of the way that the suits are going to care about. You can find us on YouTube, the one about Godzilla movies, which you might be watching right now. If you are watching this and you would rather listen to it in audio only format, you can just search for the one about Godzilla movies in your podcast player. But it should be the app Overcast, especially if you're using an iPhone. Hi, Marco. And our Patreon is finally live. What's fun about the Patreon, Bryan and I are going to talk about this after the call, but I've got some ideas rambling around my head for different tiers. So we're going to set up, I think, just 2 tiers off the bat. But some things that will be available on the Patreon will be longer, slightly less edited versions of the show. There's usually some funny little banter, even a little bit more than what you see at the beginning of the episode, before we actually get going. There's
even some unfunny banter.
There's some usually very deeply unfunny banter at the beginning. But that is at patreon.com/theoneaboutgodzillamovies. And for some reason I put our Spotify link in here, and I don't know why, because you could just search for us. So that's neat. I'm reading off of a small little script here, because we are 5 episodes in, and the first 4 I'd failed to be able to do this from memory, because that's just who I am as a person. I was late for work one day when I worked at Sam's Club in like 2012, 2013, whenever I was doing the dual, I was like working at Portillo's and at Sam's Club at the same time, like morning bakery shift at Sam's Club, and then like almost close it, like dinner to like almost closing it down at Portillo's. And where was I going with this? Why did I was late for work at Sam's Club one day, and my manager was just kind of like, dude, what, like, this, I ended up getting fired from that job because of my attendance. But my manager was like, "What's going on?" Like, and I just was like, I'm late just because of who I am as a person. And he did not find that funny at all. That was not the instance when I got fired, but it did not help my case.
Oh my God. The honesty.
This is in the same time of my life where I was overcoming waking, like I used to have a really hard time waking up in the morning. And at one point I started like putting my phone on the other side of the room, like on top of the dresser or whatever. So that and that was the alarm. So that I would have to get out of bed to go turn the alarm off. And I remember waking up one morning to my alarm going off, but my phone was not on the dresser where it belonged, and I could hear it somewhere in the room, and it's 4:00 in the morning. And I ended up, I don't know, in my sleep, I had like buried it in the closet. I don't remember doing that, but I don't know, or one of my brothers
Someone did.
Played a prank on me.
That seems more likely.
That's all. That definitely seems more likely.
So, what do I need to know about the bakery shift at Sam's Club?
It was terrible and pretty great at the same time. My shift was 5 a.m. to noon or 1 usually. And I stocked the freezer and I stocked the floor with bakery items that weren't like baked in store, because they do like sheet cakes and cupcakes throughout the day. But there's all the like, all the little like miniature little pumpkin pie bites and like croissants and like all the stuff that kind of comes like pre-packaged but is still relatively fresh every day. A lot of that arrives frozen, and the way it works is like muffins, like the variety pack of muffins or whatever, those all arrive frozen, and you just like set them out and they thaw, from 6 a.m. to the time the store opens or whatever. Or you take the ones from the day before and they're on top and the still frozen cold ones are down below, whatever. And I got forklift certified.
Oh shoot.
During my forklift certification, I tore down an entire shelf in the bakery freezer. And
everything you're saying is making it make more sense how maybe you were let go.
No, that had nothing to do with it. Me, like, legit, they did not care about that. They were just
sure?
like, no, for real.
They didn't know?
My manager did. I think he found out about it, but like the guy who was training me on my forklift certification was like, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened while somebody's training, and we can have this fixed in an hour, so it's no deal. Like,
there you go. Put the safety bumpers on.
But that was the same dude who, like, the dude that trained me was the guy who was like the dock manager at the Crystal Lake Sam's Club, and he showed up on Halloween dressed as the Phantom of the Opera, and we had forklifts that you stand up in. So he's just driving around singing Phantom of the Opera songs. Very terrible.
I was going to say, please tell me he's singing.
Oh, singing the cape, the mask, and just like, it was the best thing ever, because you just see him whistle by. Because we all went way too fast before the store was open, because there's nobody walking around. It's literally just us on moving pallets from trucks to where they go in the store. And like... yes, he just here, like, so great. Oh wow. So this is a show about movies and right.
Godzilla ones.
Yeah. Did we on the last episode? Do you recall? Did we give our letterbox scores for Godzilla 2000 Millennium?
I remember you asking me what I rated it.
Okay. Well. I'll take that as a yes.
I remember you saying that we hadn't talked about it before that moment, and that you wanted to start talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great, like, we should definitely, like, say, like, what we would rate it out of 5 or out of 10.
Yeah.
Like when we're done talking about it, or we could start with that. Who knows?
Well, I was just trying to
There's no rules.
find. I must have not rated that one yet. Godzilla.
Mm,
This is just riveting
gotcha.
content, by the way. And if you are paying for the Patreon,
I mean, I won't
I
lie. When I'm listening to
pricey.
podcasts, there's a lot of times I hit the 15-second skip forward button.
Oh, I will not either. That happens as well. Here is why I will give my pitch for Overcast. They're not sponsoring this episode. Marco Arment, you should be. MarcoArment on Mastodon if you want to look him up and tell him that he needs to be sponsoring this wonderful podcast. Because he's also probably never seen any of the Godzilla movies because that's just who he is as a person. Anyways, Overcast. This dude built in this really cool feature called I'm literally looking it up right now, called Smart Speed, and it like on the fly shortens silences, but it kind of like makes it feel a little bit natural.
Ooh.
But it like trims time out of podcasts for you, without having to hit that skip forward button because of long silences. So, yeah, Overcast. I've tried every podcast app there is on iOS, and hands down, I've always come back to Overcast, and I've been using it since 2017. So,
Well,
yeah, hey,
endorsement.
yeah, big, really, really love it. So, Godzilla 2000 Millennium, I just gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I liked it. Because
It
I think
was
I think it
3.5 for me.
yeah, I think it kind of, I don't know why we're talking about this again. That was the last movie. It was just a really good step forward, I think, for Toho to like see what kind of America had tried to do and go like, yeah, no, this is actually what Godzilla should be. And I feel like they just kind of had some people that looked at everything and said, let's take it this way. And it was actually a win for once. On to what we're here for this week. My friend, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is the one that you had seen previously. I'm assuming just kind
Yes.
of on a lark, right? Was it like friends
Um,
that were like interested in seeing it, or it like caught your eye
I
because
don't
of the
remember the
actors,
crowd.
or like
Um, but we went and saw it in the theater. I would guess that I went with my housemates and an old friend of mine. And their family has always been into Godzilla. So I imagine it was just, hey, there's a new Godzilla movie coming out. Of course we're gonna go see it. I'm imagining it was part of that. But I do remember seeing it with some people,
friend
and
of the show,
I
Xander?
remember, yeah, I do remember really, really enjoying it. But that was the first and at the time only Godzilla movie I'd seen, and I thought it was really cool.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about this week, Godzilla. It's literally just called Godzilla. Came out in 2014. This is the first film in the MonsterVerse era, it is so
Legendary Pictures.
interestingly been titled. Yeah, done by Legendary Pictures, Legendary Films. They I feel like around this time or like kind of like leading up to this, they had, I don't know, it seems like they just kind of like popped on the scene a little bit more than they had. It kind of just, I don't know. Anyways, it seems like somebody had finally risen up to maybe challenge Marvel a little bit in terms of like big blockbuster name stuff. Anyways,
Gotcha.
I've got a little bit of a TLDR for you on the film.
Okay.
Ford Brody is one of our main characters here. He is a Navy bomb expert, and he's just been reunited with his little family, his wife and their young child in San Francisco. When he gets a call that he needs to go to Japan, and help his father, his estranged father, and so he goes to Japan, and they're pretty quickly swept up in this like escalating crisis, where some ancient monsters come up out of the sea, and everybody, there's a bunch of people that kind of like saw this coming, and then there's a bunch of people that didn't believe the people that saw this coming, and it's the scientists versus the military again, and
classic.
And instead of the battleground being Japan, anywhere in Japan, they bring it to San Francisco, which is I think a better leap than New York City, because I mean, at least just the same ocean,
just across the other pond. The western pond.
So some main characters for you. We've got Godzilla, obviously, the massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, or MUTOs. I found it very interesting that for the first Godzilla movie, where they decided to have somebody that he like battles against.
Unique.
That it wasn't a like established Toho character.
Yeah, they invented this one.
That they invented it, and they saved names like Mothra, Ghidorah, Rodan for King of the Monsters, which is I don't know, maybe just maybe
might be in the near future in the cube, may not.
Yeah, either that or it was just kind of like maybe Toho made them like hold back a little bit, like, hey, let's, last time we let America do a film kind of didn't
go so great.
Didn't go so great, right? So like maybe let's not throw a bunch of names in it. And honestly, I'm glad that they did. Man, these MonsterVerse films are so fun, dude. I can't wait to watch some more of these. So yeah, MUTOs, Godzilla main characters, not Bryan Cranston. We've got Wayne from Letterkenny. We've got the United States Cheeseburger Bang Bang military, and Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver.
It's the Navy this time.
Yeah, sorry, the United States Cheeseburger Bang Bang Navy, and then Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Bryan, take it away.
If you watched, that was the funniest thing, because I watched this movie in 2014, and then a year later, Age of Ultron came out, and they're playing brother and sister, and I don't know, just kind of ruined it for me. I don't know. I couldn't get over them playing husband and wife a year earlier, and then playing brother and sister a year after that.
Right. Very interesting.
I did see at least one Letterboxd review where someone had seen the Avengers movies first, and then was watching this movie for the first time.
Oh no!
And we're like, oh, she's in his lap, man. Yeah.
Yeah, not Bryan Cranston, the Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. And I don't think
Caleb
I ever
has some strong thoughts on the Bryan Cranston thing. I can tell.
Can't wait, dude. Yeah, let's
Can we get a spoiler bell?
Yeah, sure. Hey, why not? You can't hear this one. Or that one, but you can hear this one. So,
there it is. There's a spoiler bell.
Going forward, spoilers. Take it away, my friend.
I forget why I asked that. There was something that I was gonna give away, or something I was gonna say. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. Should we talk about things we liked?
Yeah.
Dude. I loved this movie in the theater. Again, that was literally was 10 years ago, actually.
Next month.
Release date?
Next month. It's
next month? Was it May?
May 16th,
so
2014.
It's almost 10-year anniversary of this movie coming out. Mm-hmm. I do remember seeing it in theater. I remember really liking it.
And potentially,
really cool things in this movie.
By the time we release this episode, it may be for the 10th anniversary.
It may actually. Yeah, that's true.
It's by the way, it's September 2023 right now. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, man.
It's supposed to be a joke about how long it takes me to edit shit, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Oh man. Yeah, what was I saying? I was just gonna say, I guess like when I saw it, well, apparently I give it a 9 out of 10 in 2014.
I
Just
saw that.
like immediately, I've since adjusted that, but um, I really enjoyed it. Nothing wrong with that. I did find some more like things to maybe like criticize a little bit this time around. 10 years later, I've seen a lot more movies between then and now, like over 1,000, I guess. So I have like a little better idea for like story arcs and things that could be done better. Also, we've watched, I guess, 4 films before rewatching this one. So like I have a little more Toho context and Godzilla context, and so that tempers things a little bit. That being said, man, really enjoyed this movie. I think the weakest part might be some of the storylines with the characters and maybe like the way they're played. That it maybe kind of takes away from the monster part and the Godzilla part. And I think some people like I've seen similar criticisms in people's ratings, but really cool film. This is like the first one that we've watched with like modern sound design and modern visual effects and just like the whole shebang. And so just it feels like the pacing is like a very modern action film, like something you would expect to see from 2014. So it's more familiar territory for me in terms of like just the feel of the film and like the way it was done, the way the story was told, the look of things. So really enjoyed it. Okay, here's my list of things. I really like the musical theme in this movie. The music throughout is decent, but like the opening credits, it's basically just like a theme suite from this composer named Alexandre Desplat. He's done a lot of different movies. The one he's best known for is actually the Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson. Very,
Interesting.
very different score. So it shows some versatility, but I think his theme really just kind of sounds big and huge and foreboding and all the things you'd want to hear underscoring Godzilla. I thought it was interesting that they did kind of like the opening credits thing similar to the two late 90s movies. I think it was maybe more of the TriStar one that had like a bunch of just like a slideshow of imagery as the opening credits.
Yeah, kind of like a
Um, that one was like
almost like what
not
I did at the
great,
beginning here,
but
a little bit of like a TLDR, like setting the
yeah,
scene without having to tell it, like without having to voice all of the like
yeah.
nuclear
The
blah blah
TriStar one
blah.
did
Like,
it poorly, I would say, but this one I think I think the imagery did a little better. They also like put in there some stuff about Monarch, like the organization. I imagine at the time it was sort of like intended as like a teaser of like here's where we want to go with this.
yeah, and
I
there
don't think
was a
they'd
whole
had more
bunch
things
of
greenlit, but
what did they call it at the time? Like viral
they were choppers with the Monarch
marketing.
logo on it and stuff.
Yeah, but like even before the movie came out, there was a whole bunch of like as they teased before it ever even being this is going to be a Godzilla movie, there was this like what is Monarch? Like these random little like TV snippets and like all this stuff to
Mm,
build up to announcing the Godzilla movie that I remember. So
gotcha.
yeah, it was yeah, that's just a fun little
Mm,
tie-in. Anyways,
that's cool. Um, I think now is a good time to admit that I have an inherent bias, and that is I wasn't aware of any of the marketing for this film, nor did I see any of the marketing of this film before seeing it. So, in that sense, you know, I didn't have expectations going into the film that someone who was following all that marketing may have,
mm-hmm.
like the Cranston thing, maybe other stuff. So I truly went in blind when I first saw it for the first time. So honestly, the Bryan Cranston thing doesn't bother me in the slightest. We already hit the spoiler bell, so
Yeah, do you want me to
he
tell you
dies
about
at
that
some point.
now? Like, okay, so here's my beef with Bryan Cranston being in
Get
this
it out,
movie,
man.
is that the trailers, if you go watch the trailers, they made it seem like he was going to be like the main dude, not Aaron Taylor Johnson, not
Hmm.
like they made it seem like he was going to be the dude, and then they kill him 5 minutes into the film when he was like the only human that they showed in any of the trailers. And there was just all of this, like, it's Godzilla and Bryan Cranston, it's Godzilla and Breaking Bad, and then it was just him screaming Sandra and I'm not crazy for like the first, I don't know, it's not even 5 minutes, like half hour of the film, but just like it's always made me so upset that they like
Yeah, I can tell.
all of the marketing went into. I mean, I'm playing it up
So
because
you've talked about this before, and I actually had that in mind as I was watching it. And I watched the runtime clock. He dies at minute 42 out of a 2 hour movie. So he's in the movie actually for a good chunk of it. I kept thinking that he died at the beginning or something. He's instrumental in setting up like the first act, like into where the movie's going to go. Um, but yeah, his son does take over sort of his role in.
Mhm.
I don't know. Some of the storylines get a little weird, but I really enjoyed his performance. Obviously, it would have been cool to have him as a leading character the whole movie. That's obviously not what they had planned. They marketed it differently. Um, I thought he crushed it in terms of
Yeah.
just like emotional depth to his character and like motivations and like just like some little moments and earlier in the film with he and his son, just sort of like how he's processing the passing of his wife and maybe his son isn't passing. There's like some flip moments where like when you first come into it, there the perspective is sort of that like he's crazy and his son is like you need to let this go, and then it actually ends up kind of being the other way around, that his son is like maybe running away from his feelings and
Yeah,
you
and I guess
know
that's my biggest beef with the fact that they like build him up so well as a character, and kind of at the end of it he was one of the most emotionally deep people, like one of
he
the
gave the
like
best
the
performance in the film for sure.
exactly, and his character had the most depth, like partially because of his performance, but also just
Mm.
in like what he was asked to perform. Like I thought that part, like the part that was written for him was really well, but or really good, but like yeah, it just is a bummer to have like it seems like put all of that effort into that character and getting you into this relationship with him and his son to then kill him off and not really let the like I just don't think that the character of Ford Brody kept the like momentum going that kind of Bryan Cranston set up. Whoops, that kind of like set up for him, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah,
Like they tried to, like you said, they tried to make Aaron Taylor Johnson into the main character and kind of take out, like, and it was that whole like, is he running from his past and blah blah blah. But I just, meh. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
yeah. I was actually just uh, doing a control F through the trivia to see if there's anything about Cranston, because it did seem like unexpected the way he's just sort of died. Like he could have pulled through, or they could have used him as a character, but not really sure why that decision was made. But anyways, he did a great job for the portion of the film he was in, and I think he crushed it.
Yeah.
Things I liked. There's a moment where Ken Wanatabe's, how do you say it? I can't.
Yeah. Watanabe.
Where his character is sort of like summarizing who Godzilla is.
What's his
And
character's
he
name, by the way?
couldn't tell you.
Dr. Ishiro Shirazawa. Dr.
Okay.
Ishiro Shirazawa is the guy that invented the oxygen destroyer bomb in the 1954 movie.
Is it the same name?
Same name.
same name.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't like in universe. But he talks about Japan's first encounter with Gojira, as he says it, in 1954, and he also references the Americans suspecting the Soviets in the 80s. So he is, at least in the legendary universe, acknowledging sort of the events of the 1954 movie and the 1985 movie, which is cool. I like they did that. I also read that he was supposed to say the name of the creature as Godzilla, but he fought for saying Gojira, which was, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I lied. Apparently, Serizawa's name in the 54 movie is Daisuke Serizawa. So it has to be that they are like
related or something.
Yeah, and
the
that was
idea,
the whole
maybe.
point. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm sure it was just supposed to be like an Easter egg or something. But,
right.
Yeah, so that was cool. I have to pivot briefly. One thing I didn't like is that I don't remember his name. I'm going to call him Ken. Ken's character,
Dr. Serizawa.
Feels to me a little bit like he's just sort of like the typecast Japanese figurehead character the whole movie. He just kind of like spits out expositional, speculative dialogue and convenient conclusions, things, and I don't know. He's just kind of there. There were moments where I'm like, I kind of feel bad. Like it's almost as if he's there to sort of represent like the Japanese legacy of Toho more than him being like a significant character.
Yeah.
So
I can see that. Yeah, I can, and I guess I hadn't really like thought of it in those terms, but I definitely agree with that. I think that
he has the coolest line in the film, though.
Let them fight.
Let them fight.
So good.
So epic.
There's a line in King of the Monsters where another character like calls back to that moment. It's funny. It's a good one.
Nice.
I kind of like as long as we're gonna play on that, it's in my notes here for later, but I feel like I'm breaking format this time. I kind of like this whole like
sure
me interjecting as I have thoughts more than trying to like save it and circle back around. I think there's something to be said about the fact that Ken Watanabe and Sally Hawkins are the only two people that came back to reprise their roles in the next MonsterVerse movies. They are,
really?
Yeah, like Watanabe does 2 more movies, and
is that because they're part of the organization Monarch, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they are. Yeah, like big names at Monarch, and
Can you just briefly summarize what Monarch is, if anyone doesn't know?
Monarch is within the MonsterVerse. Here is a United States funded paramilitary organization. They're not like a branch of the military. They receive support from the military in certain things, but in large, they're their own just kind of like research division of the U.S. government, and their whole point is to track and contain and study and research kaiju monsters. And the whole idea of Monarch is intentionally very vague in this movie, and they just as this MonsterVerse series continues, especially as like because they open it up a little bit more in Kong as well. The Kong movies are in this universe, and they like tie some of that in there as well. And
is Monarch a known entity in any of like the Toho films, or is this a original thing?
No, it's an organization built, made for this universe. But there are organizations like it in other Toho films that we're going to watch eventually. The first one that comes to mind is the Japanese Xenomorph Special Defense Force, and they build Mechagodzilla. That's one of their weapons against Godzilla eventually. So kind of a same thing, or in 2000 Millennium, the main character and his daughter were kind of part of a grassroots network, if you will, of like people that were trying to monitor Godzilla, predict where he was going to show up, that kind of stuff. That's kind of exactly how Monarch started, and it eventually in canon or in the storyline or in timeline or whatever, it just picks up steam, gets noticed by the military, funding, blah blah blah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I was just wondering if there was like any like Monarch lore that preceded this film that people would be familiar with prior to this film.
Not prior to. No, it was just little bits of like marketing, but a lot of it was just that like that opening sequence of a whole bunch of like redacted stuff, and like really was just the intro. That was a lot of like that is the intro of like who Monarch is this film, really. So
so like me, who would have been seeing that film in the midst of a bunch of like Marvel films and other stuff at the time, like just that like name and logo and stuff being thrown around, to me felt very much like
Shield,
an Easter egg that like is a promise of we're going to build into this. But it's interesting that was an original concept, so maybe people kind of assumed that they would go somewhere. But
I mean, I think so. Like to me, it wasn't to me, it wasn't a foreign concept of this like organization that isn't the military, that doesn't want to defeat or just simply like blow Godzilla up and get rid of him, who sees the idea. Like we've talked about this before, and the last movie was the good example of that. There's this fight between scientists and the military wanting to study him and understand him, which is Dr. Serizawa's whole thing, versus the military that just wants him gone, because American taxpayer lives. So to me, but like some random organization with a cool name showing up in a Godzilla film was not foreign to me. But the name Monarch was new. But it like just instantly brought back ideas of like the Japanese Xenomorph Special Defense Force, or like Homeboy in the last movie and his daughter, that kind of whole research group thing. Or even we'll see in Shin Godzilla there is a battle between it comes down to like the military says, hey, you have until he moves again. Basically, it says to the scientists, you have until he moves again to figure out a way to do this without nuking Japan again. I don't think that's a spoiler. That's not the first time that plot point's been used either. That was a plot point in the in the '98 Godzilla that we watched with Matthew Broderick. Kind of just like, hey, the military's coming and going to drop bombs on the place no matter what. You need to do whatever you need to do and get out, kind of thing. Or like, what's his face in the building as it's being taken over by the aliens, and he's still gonna like we proceed as planned. We're still gonna blow the Katagiri is still gonna blow up the building no matter what, like kind of thing. So
totally.
Yeah, so if you are, I hope that kind of clears up Monarch, but it is not something that you should have known about. And just the whole, like, my explanation about it is really only like because there is more content available now. If you had asked me that question in 2014, I would have just been like, well, like they are this version of the JXSDF, just the American
but now it has a lot more meaning
of a research group that wants to just research Godzilla. Now,
there's an actual show called Monarch.
10 years on, there's a whole lot of lore, and I love that. I love that they've done this kind of world building with this MonsterVerse. But we'll get there.
That's cool.
I just Yeah, but how we got here was Serizawa and Sally Hawkins' character they are leading research scientists at Monarch in this film. So
Cool. So we get to see them come back. That's
yes,
good. I like them.
yes.
Also liked.
Dr. Serizawa has
Uh,
a really cool role in King of the Monsters.
hmm,
Let's see. Oh man, I can't wait. Anyways,
no spoilers. We'll
no
get there.
spoilers.
By the way, are we gonna do more MonsterVerse next, or are we gonna jump right to Shin?
I think we need to. We have Shin. We got to do that, and
Yeah.
then we can. Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure out how we want to watch these. I
All
kind of
right.
want to watch all the newer
Sick.
good ones first, and then go back to all the '70s
Yeah. Sure.
because they're gonna be work.
All right. Okay. Other things I liked. The protagonist kid, Aaron Tyler Johnson's kid, is like watching. There's a moment where he's like watching the news, and there's like footage of. I think it's the Vegas attack. No, no, it's the Hawaii attack that is on the news,
Yeah,
and it's like the moment where like Elizabeth's character is like sees the news and like realizes, oh, like this thing is going down, and my husband's there. But I just thought it was funny because the kid points to the TV and he's like dinosaurs, and I was like,
so
bro, that is a TriStar dig if I've ever seen one.
that's so good.
I cracked up at that. Subtle, subtle.
As long as we're talking
Then
about
that's a reference.
that scene in Hawaii where
Hmm.
they're on the monorail or whatever, and
Yeah,
you see, if I remember right, that's where you like Godzilla. You see Godzilla for one of the first times. He just like shows up on the scene like out of nowhere, like big roar, and just like you know, and just like smacks that
you talking
thing.
about with us the stomp, like you're watching like through the glass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's like
yeah. That's what it
that's like
is.
that's the first thing I remember picturing is like, um,
Yeah, that happens. And when I saw it, it was me and my brother and my dad. And like that happens, big roll. But it's just kind of like the way that scene ends. And it's just like he just like defeated the Motu for a second or whatever. And then they like, it goes to black and then to like whatever the next scene is. And my dad stood up in the theater and went, hell yeah! Like,
I love that.
it was so great.
That's fantastic. Um, I really like the look of Godzilla in this film. Like the design is really cool.
Hmm.
Seems really true to form. Doesn't have googly eyes. Obviously is CG. There's a lot of CG in this film, just a ton of it. But the design's really good. A lot of really,
Chonky. It's chonky. It's
yeah,
like
ch- yeah. He's
beefy.
been squatting. He's been benching. Like
Hitting
he's
that
a beefy
enriched
looking dude.
uranium real hard.
Yeah, he's been snorting it. So that looked great. Dude, the sound design in this movie is really cool. I watched it at probably a higher volume than I should have, living with other people.
Did you get any
But
comments about
dude,
it? Then you're fine.
no, no,
Yeah, see?
yeah,
You're fine.
then I'm fine. So, yeah, there's a lot of rumbly bits in this movie. There's some really, really cool sound design with the creature voices, like while they're fighting, even like when they're not fighting, just like the roars and sounds they make. But particularly the MUTOs, like they have some crackly sounds, and the way they go, like
Yeah.
I'm watching this movie in like 6 channels. The sounds all around me. There's like a lot of like sort of directional sound that they used within sort of those choices. I thought that was really cool.
That
There's a
is,
lot of soundscape in this movie.
yeah, I've been appreciating that more and more as I've been rewatching because I think what have I watched recently? I just watched King of the Monsters again, and I watched whatever I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, the way that just even when things are moving, especially when people are up close to monsters or something, and just as they're just existing, they're just moving, and there are, like you said, lots of creaky, lots of like very
Nailed it.
just man, I love that. and I think it's a cool touch that had never really been done in a Godzilla movie before. But it just, yeah, it ups the realism so much more, and
Yeah.
especially in the tense, slightly quiet moments. But yeah, even when they're fighting, interactions between monster, like their war cries, and when things get hit, and yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, even the Godzilla roar is like sort of like an original sound, but the tail end of the roar, they have like the original sample, the Toho
Mm,
sample,
yeah, yeah,
like
that
that
like
thing, the way it
trailed
ends,
off, like yeah,
it trails off. Yeah, so they like work that into it. Kind of really sold like the history of it. I think one of the best things about this movie, visually, is like the the perspective of the camera towards the kaiju. I want to say at least like 60 to 70% of the shots that we have of them are like through rainy windows and like through gritty, broken bits of this, like from below. It's like sort of a human's perspective that it sells the scale of these things, but it also like sort of positions the viewer in the environment and how you might like be viewing this thing from a particular vantage point. There's so many shots that are like through windows, like a dirty window, like a wet window, like a rainy window, and it just like gives it like this texture that like feels very gritty.
yeah.
I
That's
think that was such a
very,
wise decision for like a
yeah.
reboot
Have
movie.
you seen Gareth Edwards' movie Monster?
No.
It is, I think it is kind of what landed him the job on this
Mm,
film. It's not a killer story, but the like the way that he, like, you don't see this monster in that film until like the very very end. But like you said, he there are lots of perspective choices from Monster that were brought into Godzilla that you're talking about. That is kind of like, but also like think about, because Gareth Edwards directed Rogue One as well.
yes, he did.
And there was a couple
He wasn't
years,
the cinematographer, but he directed it. Yeah.
right? And I know that, like, yeah, it's not necessarily it's not, all the shots aren't 100% obviously the director's choice. That's what the cinematographer is for. But it's, to me, it was clear that at least he, yeah, like that idea of just like, we need to like keep the perspective of how massive
Mm,
he truly is or how massive these things actually are at all costs. It kind of seems
yeah.
like they'd make sure that they keep that very front and center as much as possible.
Now I'm reading about monsters. It's monsters plural, if you're curious about checking it
Oh,
out.
okay, my bad.
Um, yeah. Apparently, a lot of the dialogue was improvised. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why you felt the story wasn't as strong as it could be. But cool. I think
Yeah,
maybe
it's got a bit of a Sector 9 feel. Was that the name of that movie? Section
District
9?
Nine.
District 9. Yeah, it's got a bit of a District 9 feel to it.
Mm, nice.
But I think something that like, so I think they got that, and then I think what Legendary learned a lot from was, before this film, was Pacific Rim, because that was a year before. That came out in July the year before. And Pacific Rim, that's like Guillermo del Toro, but a lot of the same thing. A lot of like all the like monster stuff happens in like heavy rain, broken glass, lots of like really cool.
Yeah.
There's lots of really cool VFX stuff that I see, kind of like, they kind of did their homework a little bit and looked at Pacific Rim, specifically in the scenes with like when monsters are fighting in cities or in amongst buildings, and the way like light is reflecting and
Yep.
refracting and bouncing off of broken glass, and like there's some scenes in future Godzilla movies where they're in like, just like, I think they're in like Tokyo or something, and there's neon everywhere, very Pacific Rim, of just like all these crazy colors bouncing around as these buildings explode, and like,
yo, somehow I still haven't seen Pacific Rim. I don't know why. I need to
oh
watch that.
man,
It has such mixed reviews, but I know that it's like really cool.
it is
I need to watch it.
really, really cool. It is, yeah.
I think it probably gets beef from like people who are like only concerned with story and don't care about giant things doing giant stuff.
Right. But I don't.
At the risk of
Man,
being overly reductionistic.
you haven't heard the Stryker Pentecost canceling the apocalypse speech. Oh my god.
All right, I'll get on it.
Dude. Dude. It's one of the greats. It's one of the great speeches. It's one of the great movie speeches. It is
cool. Add it to the list.
Wow.
It's funny you mentioned monsters because I'm pretty sure Gareth Edwards was recently on the Corridor Crew YouTube channel talking about bad and great CGI. It's like a series that they do. It's really informative if you're interested in learning about that kind of stuff.
Are these ones that you just put in? Yeah.
Yeah, I just sent 2 of them to you, but I'm pretty sure they did like 2 episodes with him because they actually had Gareth like on the couch with them talking about CGI and some of the stuff he's done in his films. They were mostly talking in the one of them we were talking about The Creator, which is a recent Gareth Edwards film that I saw. It's pretty cool. But I want to say maybe in the other episode they did talk about monsters a little bit because that was kind of how he got his start.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a kind of a low budget movie where they accomplished some cool stuff. So that's probably why that sounded familiar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth a watch, especially if you like, especially as an introduction to Gareth Edwards, or if to go. I watched Monsters before I watched this Godzilla, and I only watched it once. Maybe it's probably worth another one. Anyways,
sure.
So, low angle perspectives.
Yeah, I got more stuff that I liked. There's so the MUTOs, however you want to say it, they have the ability to emit like this EMP pulse, and it like every time that it happens in the movie, it like takes out all these electronics. Well, there's a really cool moment in the movie, like sort of in the bay where it happens, and there's just all these jet planes that have been firing on the MUTOs, and this EMP happens, and dude, you just have like this view from like the deck of a ship in like this bay, like next to San Francisco, and dude, these jet planes are just falling from the sky. It is so cool, dude.
Yeah.
And like they're still traveling at speed, but they're just like dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at an angle, and it's like it's just such a unique thing to see. Such a cool idea. Just jets falling from the sky.
Yeah, like just a new form of chaos in an environment like that. Like,
mm-hmm. And it's like pretty closely followed by a group of like skydivers. It's got to be the coolest scene in the movie.
That Halo jump is
it's still one of the coolest scenes, I think. Like top 10 scenes in a movie ever.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, man, you should watch the film. Or if you're not going to, just look up the Halo jump scene on YouTube or something. It is sick.
They take all the audio away for a second.
There's like this like crazy choral music.
Yeah.
Apparently it's a composition that was in 2001: A Space Odyssey in the beginning of that film.
Oh, interesting.
It's from like a classical composer.
That's cool.
It's like this really dissonant choral thing, and this choir's just like wailing, and there's these skydivers just dropping through the cloud layer, and you just get like this wide shot of these skydivers with flares attached to them, just like dropping into the city, and then you get like this first person perspective of these guys dropping in, like sort of like through their like masks, and sort of like what they're seeing as they're falling into the city, and they're like falling next to Godzilla, and it's just, oh my god, it's so sick.
Do you enjoy beer, adult beverages?
Yeah.
Do you like dark beer? Like a stout or a porter or anything like that?
Not in the way that some people I know do. Um, I view it as like it's like a dessert thing. It's like a special occasion thing.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I had these peppermint porters around for a while, like at Christmas time. That was nice. I'll enjoy a thick stout. I have access to trying like top tier things because of the business that Xander's in. So
Does he work in more now, or is he?
no. Just he's in the business of acquiring such things.
I see.
His interests get him some of the best stouts in the world. So that kind of top tier, top shelf stouts, they're just like sitting around my house. So yeah,
That's nice.
I tend to go more for fruity things.
Fruity things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I bring that up because I've been like you. I agree. Like a stout it's a good, like a dessert, or I tend to really only drink them during the colder months.
Okay,
Founders, which is I mean, they're right up the street from here. No, not really.
massive brewery.
Perrin is right up the street from here. Don't be creepy. But yeah, Founders up there, in they're down the street in Grand Rapids. They have a slogan on like coasters and stuff that comes out in the fall, and it's like it's stout season beer that drinks like a meal. And that's during the cold months for sure. But I have been enjoying this one from War Pigs Brewing, who are
Sounds familiar.
located somewhere here in the Midwest. Um,
We'll have to look it up on Untapped.
where are you from? Anyways, they have this Zola Chill inspired kind of like chocolate, like Mexican chocolate inspired. It's called Raise the Dawn.
Okay.
And it's a little spicy, a little earthy, chocolate obviously, but just cinnamon, cardamom, little clove kind of. It's just it's really great if you can find it. And there's a quote on the can that I enjoy quite a bit. It's, "You don't need a shot in the dark when you hold dominion over the light." And I will drink to that. So
Wow, that's poetic. I'm discovering as we speak that there is a web app for Untapped. Did not know that.
makes sense in this economy. So we were talking about
Godzilla.
before my AirPods decided they were done for the evening.
Oh yeah, your AirPods changed shape on your ears there.
They did. They're suddenly custom.
Sorry, we're
custom
a low
molded
budget.
to my ears.
We're a low budget podcast, so we don't have the budget for a continuity manager.
Well, we do, but it's me, and I don't give a shit.
So we don't have the budget for it.
For a real continuity manager.
Oh man. So yeah, we were just talking about that Halo jump.
Halo jump.
Dude, what do you love about that shot? I'm sure you love it.
It's just a really cool blend of like Mission Impossible and like the Avengers a little bit, and like you said, like the classical music and the I don't know, I just thought it was a really cool way to up the intensity of the film a little bit more. Get the humans involved a little bit more. I do appreciate that there is in these movies there is at least in this film there's a lot of like close quarters contact with these monsters and humans. More so, and not like peaceful close quarters contacts either. Like they're in there actively trying to blow up a bomb to get rid of that MOTU nest. And like
Yeah.
What a cool scene, by the way. That's what this Halo jump sets up. But I think the
Hmm.
Halo jump, that was trailer number 2, was like the beginning of trailer number 2 was plane door open, all you see is red and storm, and then it's and then it was like it was the visor cam shot of you flying through the air. That was the start of trailer number 2.
It's possible I saw that trailer,
And
but not the one with Bryan Cranston.
right. And that one, it was, if you didn't know this was a Godzilla trailer at the start of it, you're like, you probably would have been like, is this a new Mission Impossible a little bit? Like, or a new, like, what is this?
Mm.
Because it is that, I don't know. I just said it had a very cool, that just
Yeah.
felt, it felt ultra cinematic in a way that we haven't really seen in a Godzilla film up to this point, I think. Like, that Halo jump scene is one of the, like, it's one of the greats, in my opinion.
It is. It is so cool, man. I love it.
One of the times I saw this film, I saw it with the, have you heard of it's called like D box or whatever, the seats that like move and vibrate and stuff. Have you
No,
seen a film in one of these?
was it like a 4D kind of a thing, or
No, like there were no glasses or nothing, but it was just that
oh,
like
seats move?
like the helicopter, like there's a scene where you're flying in the helicopter for a second, and like the seat like shifted to the side as the helicopter
Ooh,
turned, and then like Godzilla, like giant thunderous footstep, and it's you're literally shaking in your seat. So probably you know a 10-inch like subwoofer in this thing, or like have you ever seen a butt kicker for like bass players or drummers?
about what?
It's called a
Just
butt
kidding.
kicker.
Yes, I know what it is.
Yeah, it's like a big servo motor. Like it's probably exactly what it is.
Yeah,
It's like the vibration motor in your iPhone, but
or your
as
Xbox
but
controller or
as thick
whatever.
as your forearm. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So right before that, this is so funny. It took me out of the film for a second. I was like, it was blowing my mind. But right before the Halo jump, they're like sort of a briefing where they're talking about what they're going to do and what the mission is. And so, so the main character, uh, who's also the writer for the show Letterkenny, is in this movie. And I just like he just stood out like a sore thumb to me because I've been watching a bunch of Letterkenny.
Friend of the show,
And
Jared Kesso.
oh my god, I don't know if you've ever watched Letterkenny, but it's like a Canadian hit comedy, and they have very thick accents, and they're Ontario folks, and the voice that lead
Quebec.
character, who's the creator of the show, chooses for his character is like just very thick and very very stilted the way that he talks, and he's just like in this briefing in this movie talking American English with a normal cadence, and it just threw me for such a second just to see his face talking like an American Navy soldier. It just was like I was like so confused for a second. I was like, I was like pointing at the screen. It was literally like the DiCaprio meme. I was just pointing at the screen like, ah, it's that's him. It's Wayne. Oh wow, my that's cool.
You're like me on the last episode trying to point to the.
To the record. That's cool. Anyways, that took me out for a second. What else was
Oh
sick?
my gosh, it is him! I'm literally watching it right now. I
Are
have
you
that
just
scene
looking up the
pulled up.
clip? Dude, I gave you the timestamp.
Yeah, I'm
Isn't that
literally watching it
weird?
right now.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, I never noticed that before.
I know. I like had to watch it 3 times. I was like, "Oh my god, it's Wayne!" And he's like, "If I
Yeah,
understood
no
it
accent.
correctly,
He just sounds like a good old boy. That's why ground insertion is not possible. It is my
exactly
understanding we're to
full
be.
American." Um, it just it took me out of the scene. But if I understood it correctly, he's like the leader of the EOD team that is about to do the jump.
Yep.
So he's on the ground with them. He has other lines.
I think that's actually like
following
even
that
called out. Like that's what he's credited as in like on IMDb.
Oh, is that what it says? Okay. I didn't actually look it up.
Halo Jump Master.
Halo Jump Master. That is a sick term.
It's the
So
Jump
that was
Master.
fun.
Yeah.
Another really cool movie or another cool moment in this film is the radioactive breath, I think is the right term. And they showed so much restraint in choosing like a specific moment to like first bring that in. And oh my god, it's so cool, dude. Like they basically just show the tip of the tail. Like all you can see. Okay, so I'm gonna set the scene. So it's like hazy to the max. You can't see a thing. What you see is the tip of his tail, and you like see it start to glow and flash, and then you start to see like these like the lights. They start flashing, almost like if you like ever drive by like an airport and you see like the runway lights and they're like kind of blinking. It's like the slow mo version of that.
Yeah.
And because of the haze and the fog, you just like start to see the lights go up his spine, and it like reveals him glowing in the fog, all the way up to his head, and then he just lets it rip. It's so sick. Yeah, I almost want to watch that again. It's so cool.
And right before
there's a great use of like his tail too.
Yeah, right before that too, they're still down. The Halo jumpers are still down, trying to get the whole like bomb thing figured out. And
yep.
Ford Brody is just like stood there for a second, and all you see is just this silhouette of the tail.
Yep.
Like right through because the MUTOs have no idea he's there, and
he's just like in the fog.
Yeah.
Or the smoke or whatever it is.
Yeah, I love in Godzilla movies when they give him that like those little tiny moments of suspense,
like a tip the scale moment almost too.
Yeah, tip the scale, but just like we know he's there, but they don't know he's there, and there's this like tension of I love it.
Yeah. Final thing I loved. Both kill shots in this movie are the most badass thing ever. The one with the tail was what got me. Where the one when she goes for him, and you like see him like stare down the camera. It's like almost like he doesn't wink at the camera, but it's almost like a stare down moment where he's like, "I'm ready, bring it." Like that's what he's saying. And then the Motu like goes for him, and he does like this like lazy sidestep, and then just freaking pins him to like this girder with his tail. Just freaking lays his tail into him. It's almost like a roundhouse kick, but with his tail, and just like destroys him. And then he just kind of like looks at the camera like, "What?" Like that's the vibe.
I think you'll.
But he had to earn it. Like he fought for a good while before he had that moment. So.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that there is like, I don't know. There's tension in the whole movie overall. There is it's never just straight up all like, oh, Godzilla's gonna like wipe out whatever's going on here. We just have to wait for it. And it's never just straight up, oh, like, oh, the military is just gonna take care of him or what. Like there is back and forth the whole time. I don't know. Not so much a spoiler, but like looking back on this one and knowing what they've done since then, while this is one of the best like human stories in a Godzilla movie so far, they kept getting better, which I am very, very happy about, because I can't say the same about the Transformers movies, but that's a different podcast.
Different topic.
Yeah,
that's like the end of my list for things I loved.
Dude, yeah, the end shot where he like takes the MUTO, prized its jaws open as he like times it perfectly to do the radioactive breath.
Mm-hmm.
Mwah, chef's kiss.
And it's literally like
Chef's
it
kiss.
takes all of 2 seconds for the radioactive breath to like for his head to literally just fall off the body.
Like, yeah, out the side of the neck, and it's just over.
And then he's just holding the head.
Yeah, and he's done. It is, yeah, it's something I've always appreciated, or I've always loved in a Godzilla movie. This happens occasionally. They don't do it every single time, but it is kind of like Godzilla just says, okay, enough. And like, it's almost like Popeye in the can of spinach. Just like, okay, I tried to do this like the normal way and it's not working. So we're done here. Like,
yeah. Totally.
So talk
What
to
do
me
you
about
love?
some, well, I mean, your list is really, really great. And that's kind of why I've just been like chiming in along the way here, and why I don't have a whole lot written in my slot, because like
Sure.
you called out a lot of the really great things.
Nice.
I've said this a few times, but like watching this movie now kind of feels like when I go back and watch the original Iron Man, where like you go back and watch the original Iron Man now with the knowledge of the MCU. And you kind of see where they knew they kind of had some ideas for it, but they weren't fully formed yet. But there are little tiny just little like hints or ideas that they ended up carrying out and bringing forward into the franchise. It's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah.
In retrospect, hindsight is 2020. I think Gareth Edwards was the exact right and wrong person to direct this film. I just think he kind of didn't. I think he had a lot of really great pieces that he brought together, but he didn't, as a director, just didn't bring that final I don't know. As an audio engineer, it's kind of like just like the master, the final, that final glue, the final, just like, let's bring this whole project cohesively together and home. I think he missed it just a little bit.
Yeah, I think some of his other movies that I've seen, it seems like he's really good at breaking like an original concept, like an original world or original concept to life. Maybe he's not as like story oriented,
Yeah, for sure.
because like the best movie he's directed, in my opinion, is Rogue One, and the reason Rogue One is great because the writing of Tony Gilroy, like the writing is just so good. So I think like if you pair like a world class writer with Gareth, like you have a recipe for success.
Yeah.
I don't know if the writing of this movie was the best, but
Yeah. It, to me, the human connection, or like it felt like they tried to force your connection to the humans just a little too much. Like, it was a compelling story, but
yeah,
I felt like
they were trying to
wanted
make
me
it more about the human characters than about Godzilla. You know?
right, like they wanted me to feel really bad for Scarlet Witch, but like I'm here to watch Godzilla fuck some stuff up. Like, at the end of the day, that needs to be what they remember. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we're here for. No matter how good the human story is, at the end of the day, you're still here to watch Godzilla do Godzilla things. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little
Like
bit
that.
about things that you maybe you didn't like so much.
Yeah, I already kind of talked about the thing with Ken. I forget her name, his sidekick. She's even more so just kind of there.
Oh, Sally
Um,
Hawkins' character? Yeah.
yeah.
Shoot. What is her
Hopefully,
name?
like, hopefully there's more they were able to do with those characters in future
Vivian.
films.
Yeah, Vivian
But
Graham.
they're kind of just on the side in this movie. Like, they're just there to be there, and I'm not really sure what purpose they serve other than they're like the representative of like being experts of the creature.
Right.
That's about it.
And I think that's one of the things that, like, when I said that, like, when I go back and watch Iron Man and you could see an idea that they then took it, like, the idea of who is Monarch and how are they going to be a part of this story? How are we going to uncover them from the shadows? Because the whole idea is that up until this point, the general public doesn't know that Monarch exists. They are a secret organization. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think in hindsight, they probably didn't really have that figured out. That was probably the idea. Like, hey, we've got this secret organization, Monarch, and they've been tracking Godzilla and blah, blah, blah. But, like, I think that's probably as far as that idea went at this point. But, yeah, you're right. It did seem kind of just like we've got the totem, or I'm sorry, the token Japanese person, token Japanese scientist, and he's got his, like, female sidekick.
Right.
And yeah,
for the diversity points or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, for whatever the whole, whatever the point was, but like,
which isn't diversity if she's just there, you know.
Yeah,
but
and
it's
interesting to me because, like, Serizawa, his character ends up being, like, pretty interwoven into the story. Sally Hawkins is not. Like, Dr. Graham's story, she's pretty heavily featured in the Kong movies. So it's kind of like a...
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Gotcha.
Anyways.
That's cool. Most of my, like, criticisms are of, like, story elements or character elements. The whole, like, there's this little boy on the train and we need to, like, return him to his parents. Like, that serves zero purpose to anything in the movie. They were trying to find... I could tell that it was an add-on. They were like, we need something to happen. We've decided that Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is going to be in this train. We need a reason for him to be there, or a reason, or something for him to do while this train is being destroyed. And so they look like... You can tell they just, like, literally just, like, we need to add something for him to be doing. And so that's, like, never great when they're like...
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel earned, or there's no purpose to it. It's just, like, him being busy. His character have something to do while he's traveling from place to place. It doesn't really move the story forward, so...
I'm just looking at the... So maybe you know this better than I do, but what is the difference between... So, like, there's this guy here who's listed as doing screenplay, and then there's a different person listed for story. Why is that two different?
I mean, I can speculate. A story is just a story. I mean, it could be, like, I don't know, it could just be something that's said out loud in a room, or maybe it's written in short paragraph form. A screenplay is truly, like, character by character, page by page, a description of this thing happens, character, and then, like, the dialogue, and it's like it's a specific format.
Okay.
It's what you'd be reading in, like a table read, literally character by character, scene by scene.
I see.
Whereas the story might just be literally like you would read in a book, like a description of the story itself.
Yeah, or maybe like a graphic novel in this case or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
So the reason I asked that is because the guy who did the screenplay, Max Bornstein, has gone on to do the... So he did the screenplay for this. He did the... he was the executive producer and writer and creator for the TV show Minority Report that came out the year after that. But he did the screenplay for Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong, and he's the executive producer of the TV show Monarch.
But you'll notice, like, both of them didn't have a ton before this movie.
Right.
So not a lot of experience.
Right, and that's the point I'm making, is that, or I want to make, is that like, this is like, all things considered, and I think maybe when we come back to like these films again in the MonsterVerse, you will agree with me that like this is a very good first attempt for this dude, for Max
Yeah,
Borenstein at least,
it's
and
not bad.
he's like the only person that is still involved in all of these movies. He's kind of like the Kevin Feige of this,
Okay.
because like Feige was like that a little bit. Like he was just like, and now he's freaking running Disney basically, or at least running Marvel. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
yeah, I will just, without spoiling it, I will just say that his screenplays have gotten better and better and better and better since 2014, and him being executive producer of Monarch is one of the best TV shows I've seen in the last couple of years. Like
Really?
the
I mean, the like,
the double entendre of Legacy of Monsters, and the way that they've like the human story in this is compelling as all get out. Like it's so good, and they tie so many things together. They bring so much past all of this stuff that happened in the 50s all the way up to the first Godzilla movie they cover, and it's like it's so cool. So cool.
nice.
And it takes place after this movie. So and in fact parts of that show take place during this movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Like the first episode or two to kind of take place, to set the timeline.
Um, yeah, and there's definitely some dialogue in this movie that's like almost like spoon fed or overly expositional, or just like they're like reaching conclusions on things out of thin air, or just kind of it seems a little convenient, or
Such as what?
a lot of things that Ken says, where they're just like, where he's just like, oh, this must be the case, but there's not like a lot of rationale behind it,
Yeah.
like reaching conclusions about the MUTOs in particular, like
I feel like I've made that
yeah,
point
I don't know,
about other Godzilla movies in the past that they like oh hey, we've
sure,
just got this weapon. We've just got this new beam thing that we're going to shoot him with. Like it just kind of showed like oh hey, we figured out that he gets his power from this, or like yeah, just like
yeah,
real like unexplained conclusions or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I mean, I wonder.
Brody's dialogue is all like really flat. I don't know if it's like just what's written, or like he's just like such a flat character. I'm not sure what it is. He
Where it
just
was
kind of says
written flat
things.
character and they shot it in a day and a half or something. Like,
Did they really?
I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't read.
Could be. I also thought like the bus driver scenes when they're like on the bridge were kind of dumb. Where
Oh, yeah. That
he's just
guy.
like, ah, I need to step on the gas now, and I was like, but why? Like they never really explain like why is this happening? Why is the bus driver trying to run down the military? I don't
Well,
understand.
because he's got a bus full of kids and he needs to get off the bridge right now. And,
I don't know, but
like,
everything he was doing was endangering them more. So I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah. Just,
it's just stupid. I was like,
just
what are you doing? Stop it.
a prime example of how your decision making goes right out the door when you're upset or stressed or,
Well, maybe you get something out of it then.
hi, therapy.
There you go.
I dropped my fidget.
I have a silly.
Title.
I dropped my fidget. Okay. Silly criticism. There's, I think it's when Godzilla first comes out of the sea, Hawaii, right? There's like a there's like a shot of a beach, like a cabana thing, and people sort of like flee the beach. It's sort of like a luau vibe. They're like hanging out. It would have to be Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii. And like the water comes in from the sea. I think that's when Godzilla's first coming out of the sea. I think that's probably what that was. Anyways, my point is there's like this dog on the beach and his leash is tied to a tree. And like people start running away from the beach because they like see the tide rising, like the water's coming in and it's like rising fast. And the dog's like barking and he does like this thing where he turns to run. And this leash just like snaps off the tree. I don't know why that was a sticking point for me, but I'm just like, he's clearly like tied to this tree. He can't move. He's stuck there. He's barking at the ocean. As soon as the water comes in, like it just conveniently snapped, and I was like, "What?
Yeah, how does that work?
Why did he need to be tied to the tree? Like that just doesn't make any sense. Like he could have just been there. I don't. Whatever.
I'm watching that right now.
It's it's like such a stupid thing to object to, but I'm like, I just like, I was like, I didn't buy that. There's no way a leash would snap off that tree, idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, all of a sudden the tide goes out so far that the pier is on like dry ground.
Yeah, but it was like it
There's
was
a
one of those
luau
moments
on the
where
beach, and
I was like,
then yeah,
someone
just like
wrote
what?
that. Why did they write that?
Yeah,
Like, I don't get it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It seemed unbelievable to me. Um, yeah.
let them
Anyways,
fight.
that fight. Only other criticism I have. So I think
Man's greatest folly is believing that he is in control of nature and not the other way around.
such a good line though. I feel like if I was Ken, I would have signed up to do the movie just because of that line. Maybe he did. I don't know, I'm just speculating here. That's epic.
He delivers it so well.
Only other criticism I have, I think this movie suffers from like something you see a lot in the early 2010s, which is, hey, we feel we finally cracked CGI. We can do photorealistic things, or we feel we can. Everything needs to be CG. You know what I mean? Um, you see that a lot in the early 2010s. And there's just something, it's not an uncanny valley issue. It, like, I mean, the stuff is done really well in this movie. I'm not, like, criticizing. I didn't think any of the CG looked unrealistic, per se. But there is something about, like, a scene, like, I, with our modern eyes, when we're watching something, without necessarily realizing it, we can tell that we're looking at a scene that is entirely computer generated. And it's just like CG buildings and CG monsters and CG fog and like the whole thing is like not real. And I think like when you overdo it like that, like we can tell that it's not real and it suspends the disbelief a little bit. And like in the last 10 years, we've started shifting away from that a bit
Yeah.
into some more
But it was
combinations of
definitely, yeah, it's
practical
kind
and
of like, it
CG,
was,
or like,
yeah,
you know, maybe it's like you've got a guy in a suit and then you're like augmenting the suit with CG or whatever. Like there's
right.
different ways of approaching it.
It's funny though to see the just how typically human we all are, like all of us, from top to bottom in every industry and every level of it. Like the computers got really good at doing this, and we were like, we need to do as much CG as possible. And like, and now
Yeah,
we realize, maybe not. Let's swing that
I
back the other way a little bit. You know what I
I
mean? Like,
think I
and
think some
it's
of it might also be that like every version of CG that we have experienced, we think is the most photorealistic thing we've ever seen,
yeah,
and
until it
we don't
isn't.
think it's gonna get any better, but then you watch something from 10 years ago and you're like, oh, actually, I think it did get better, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, even this
So,
that looked so good at the time, even now you can just be like,
and it does really look good, but like you can still tell that it's like,
yeah,
wow, all of that is CG, you
which is
know?
crazy because like what's it going to be like 10 years from
Which
now?
like it has to be, you know? Like
Yeah.
with the scenes they're doing, like, you know, it has to
Yeah.
be CG. It's just
Yeah.
like so some crazy water simulations, especially when like the ocean coming in Hawaii and just swamping through the billows. I was just looking at that. I was like, there's all these like lights going out underwater and like debris swirling around. Like, wow, like that's a lot of simulations. That's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they were doing a lot, especially for the time. When did I was just reminded of this kind of like trivia thing I heard about the first Transformers movie, the Michael Bay. Oh, 2007. I remember hearing that at the time, to render a frame of the film that had more than one robot in it, took 37 hours per frame because of the amount of like CGI, and it just was like and the time went up exponentially based on how many robots were in the scene, and like so like the fight sequences took like a year to render or something like.
Yeah, and now like the render farms like scale up so much that you can like what you can do is just becomes even greater.
Yeah. Yep.
Just those massive server farms. Rating before we move on to trivia.
Let's see. I mean, we can do trivia. We got a little bit of trivia.
What's the final rating? We are at 90 minutes here, so.
Oh wow, are we really?
We had a lot to talk about.
Wow. Let's see. My rating.
Mine's an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great film. I think I had it 1 star too high originally, upon reflection. So.
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a really. So what is that? 3.5 stars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5 stars, 7 out of 10. It's for a non-Toho venture, like America taking another shot at Godzilla. I think they nailed it. It's a good film. It's not it didn't win any awards. I don't think it deserves to. But
No.
it's a heck of a Godzilla movie.
For me, like the coolness makes up for some of the holes in like the writing.
Exactly, and I think they knew
just
that.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think they leaned into that, and we're just like, well, it's a
style over substance, like that thing. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a Godzilla movie. You know, it's not a historical retelling of the Titanic. It's not like,
know what you are. Yeah,
it's sci-fi. So, yeah, exactly. Know what you are. Know what you are for sure.
Totally.
Well, hey, oh yeah, the one trivia thing that I thought was really cool is there's an actor in this film named Akira Takarada. Akira Takarada. I apologize to you, sir, but I mean, let's be honest, you're probably not with us anymore. Rest in peace. Akira was like an immigration officer in this film, probably in the Hawaii scene, I'm guessing. I can't remember where. But he's a pretty storied history with Toho. He is one of the main characters. He's the main character in the 1954 Godzilla movie. He is Ogata-san in the 1954 Godzilla. He's like the reporter dude. He also has major roles in quite a few Toho films, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, King Kong Escapes, and Mothra versus Godzilla. Just playing different, obviously not the same character, but his role in Mothra versus Godzilla he's pretty good. So I just thought it was cool for them to bring somebody who was in the original Godzilla movie, have him be in this kind of rebirth of the universe here in America. So I have dropped a couple links in here that'll be in show notes. The YouTube videos that Bryan was talking about with Gareth Edwards reacting to VFX, and an article that we didn't really get to talk about that I may save for follow-up for next time, but I'll put it in now anyways, and just some of the ways that this film paralleled the Fukushima disaster in 2011, and especially the beginning of the movie, and how like the news coverage of Fukushima became all about the meltdown and how terrible that was, and it distracted from all of the people that were like had their homes destroyed and everything from the tsunami that led to the Fukushima disaster, right? Like just totally took the all of the focus away from all of these people onto a nuclear and like, just kind of being focused on the wrong thing and it leading to even more disaster and stuff for people. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, it's a good little article. I don't know where I found it, but the website is atomicinsights.com, and I'll put a little
Nice.
linkety link in there. And in fact, Brian, I'm going to give it
Linkety
to you
link.
right now.
Nice.
So
some trivia items.
Yeah, that was my trivia. Was Mr. Akira-san being in the film? What else?
There's a couple here on IMDb that I thought were cool. Dr. Serizawa, Ken's character, he specifically requested and insisted on sort of introducing Godzilla as Gojira.
Gojira.
And I'm glad he did that. So it was a nice nod. Says here the sound designer used a 12-foot high, 18-foot wide speaker array to blast Godzilla's roar at 100,000 watts, just to get an idea of what he would sound like. That sounds like something that you would do if you had access to a giant sound system. Just play the Godzilla roar through it.
If I had access to a giant sound system.
Well, have you played Godzilla's roar through a giant sound system? You have to now.
I have, and the next time I do it, I'll record it for you.
Let's go.
I've got this. There's this L Acoustics. Shout out to L Acoustics. There's this L Acoustics room in Los Angeles that I got to experience last year with. We've talked about it a little bit. It's almost like they have that technology that takes Dolby and translates it into Elisa. And they have another room with every model of L Acoustic speaker, from the tiniest to the stadium filler. And
wow,
I played some noises on those speakers.
Got a soundboard. You should just create a soundboard website app with all your favorite sounds.
Yeah, wow. I mean, again, you're not hearing this, but
that would be fun.
There's everybody else just heard a Godzilla roar. Anyways, continue on.
Fair enough. Marine Corps declined to participate after their experience in the TriStar film.
Are you serious? They asked the Marines and they said no?
And that's why the Navy's in this movie. Because the Marines said no.
Title.
The Marines said no title. Amazing. This is such a random trivia item. The cinematographer for this film was named Seamus, which I believe is Seamus.
Mm-hmm.
Arch name.
Seamus. Oh,
Seamus McGarvey.
Oh, Seamus.
All right, you got out of your system.
Never.
Apparently, he got lost going to the set originally or something, and he ended up on a nearby set for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which came out the same year, which was shooting nearby at a lake, and apparently looked very similar to the set he was supposed to be at. He said he was walking around with his light meter and not recognizing anyone, and he described it as a surreal, dreamlike experience until he realized his mistake. I have no idea why that's in this trivia, but it's just so funny to me. This dude was just on the wrong film set.
So to me in my head, I just instantly thought of showing up to work like a music festival, like showing up to work Lollapalooza, and I'm supposed to be at one stage and I show up to the other one at the other end of the park, and everybody's like, who what? Who are you? I swear, Gorillaz is supposed to be up next. Nah, man, we've got Kanye's coming up here. Like,
wow.
Sorry.
There's over 960 VFX shots in this movie.
That's it?
It's a lot of VFX shots. The 3D model of Godzilla, made up of 500,000 polygons, appears in 27 of the shots, so maybe just over a third of the shots.
Wow.
Had the graphics been rendered on a single computer, it would have taken 450 years to render. That's a very subjective statement because it depends on what the computer is, but
I mean, for a computer available in 2014.
Yeah, I mean, VFX is rendered in like these giant like render farms now.
Yeah.
There's like a way of pipelining them all together. I'm not quite sure how they do it, but we mentioned this earlier, but during the Halo jump, there's music during that scene, which is from a composition called Requiem, is used in the Monolith scene, which is the opening scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968. And I don't know. Do you want to take a crack at this composer's name?
Georgi Ligeti. Georgi Ligeti.
He's no Hungarian Austrian composer.
Yeah,
apparently. I don't even.
This is Gregory.
Ligeti.
This is Gregory Ligeti Spaghetti. Gregory Spaghetti.
So, if you want to look up Requiem by Ligeti, that is the composition that was used in the Halo jump. Pretty baller choral work there.
I mean, yeah, and an incredible. I mean, we already talked about it, but that scene,
man. I guess we had our own trivia item with the Letterkenny guy.
Hey, yeah, look at that.
Maybe that's trivia, maybe not. I don't.
What?
So apparently, in the Brody home, there's a terrarium. There's a roach in the terrarium, and there's a label that says Mothra. Didn't notice that.
Did you? Now that you say that, I remember like reading that trivia or something before. Yeah, that's cute.
Huh. That's cool. The MUTO design was inspired by the 1933 King Kong, the original Alien, Jurassic Park, and Starship Troopers. And the second I read Starship Troopers, I was like, that makes... I just watched Starship Troopers recently for the first time. The proportion of those creatures, the bugs they call them, and the MUTOs in this film, like, other than like the scaling, like it's not too far off.
Right.
Kind of like these really leggy, kind of spidery, crawly bat, almost like a bat crawling, like a giant bat. Honestly, is kind of like the design of them. Totally makes sense. I didn't actually look. You should look up like the box office for this while I'm saying this, but I guess they greenlit 2 sequels, so probably the next 2 MonsterVerse movies, within 2 days of the premiere of this film. Like, that's how well it did. The box office, I think, went pretty well.
Let's see.
I mean, I know a lot of people that went to go see this movie, so...
Yeah, I mean, I saw it 4 times in theaters. 529 million.
Opening... Is there an opening weekend on there?
Well, it was shot on 160 million. Opening weekend was 93 million dollars.
93 opening weekend is very good.
93,188,384.
Well, that's good. Let's see. It says here at the premiere, some Toho executives and staff members were said to have broken down in joy at the portrayal of their property in this film.
That's awesome.
Gotta love it.
Yep.
$38
million the first day.
First day. Wow. Andy Serkis did some consulting on the movement of the creatures.
Who's Andy Serkis?
Who's Andy Serkis?
Well, I mean, I know, but like for those who...
Oh, I was about to tear you into one. I don't know. Okay, we'll just pretend that you didn't say that. Andy Serkis, without being too overly simplistic, he played Gollum in The Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
He is an English actor. He's a great actor. He's an even better voice actor. His claim to fame actually kind of came about through the Lord of the Rings movies. You really opened a can of worms here. I'm about to talk all about Andy Serkis.
No, please.
I'll try and summarize as short as I can, but he had to sort of, as a result of the way they made those movies, he kind of wore white pajamas and
Oh,
played
this dude.
yeah.
I
He
literally.
played he played
Okay.
so he played Gollum on set in white pajamas. And then it was very early stages, but he wore a motion capture suit and had to re-perform a lot of his movements for Lord of the Rings after the fact. And they had sort of this clunky setup with all these cameras around him, and they would basically sort of capture his movements and then map it to a CG version of the character. That's what would go into the film, and that was it was called motion capture. It was a pretty new technology. He really leaned into that, and I don't know, within I think 10 years of working on those movies. I mean, he went on to do it again and play King Kong in Peter Jackson's King Kong in 2005. Not too long after that, he opened his own studio. It's called Performance Capture now.
Okay.
He owns a studio called, I think, Imaginarium Studios or something, and he's basically pioneered everything we know about performance capture technology. It's now used in most video games with
Yeah.
cutscene characters. It's pretty much used for any humanoid character that is a CG character that could be
Yeah.
performed. So their studio does a lot of consulting work. Basically, they'll go do performance capture at their studio for another movie. They can be booked in that way. So basically, he's an expert in the technology and stuff, but he and a lot of people that have worked for him are experts in sort of inventing movement for a non-human character.
Sure.
Basically, coming up with how would this thing move, and then how do I perform that in such a way that the movements are translated to the CG character.
Okay. That's so
So
cool.
I love that, this is probably 15 years into his career performance capture at this point for this movie. So, I'm sure he gets consulted a lot. Now he's infamous for being sort of the guy for that. And I'm sure there's a whole generation of students of that technology that have come out of his studio and what he's done.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
where now it's a common thing and people kind of know about it, and it's really honestly pretty cool. But
Yeah.
long answer to your short question.
Hey.
Legendary dude.
Oh, he did Venom. Directed
Yep.
Venom and
He
both the
directed
Venom
Venom 2,
movies.
I believe. And motion captured some stuff.
Yeah.
I think actually the first directing that he did was he directed Second Unit for the Hobbit movies. He did come back to play Gollum briefly in the Hobbit movies, but he directed Second Unit for Peter Jackson on those films as well.
And he also did. He was in the movie and he directed Mowgli.
Yep. That was basically made out of his studio. That was his idea. They wrote it. They wanted to do their own adaptation of the Rudyard Kipling Jungle Book, but basically make a movie that was based on the book and not on the Disney movie, because the Disney movie isn't really based on the book.
Huh.
So Mowgli it's a bit of a different story. It's a lot more about the humans and the village.
Yeah, I've read the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah. Very cool guy. I also mentioned Second Unit. For anyone who doesn't know what a second unit is, it's basically a whole secondary set of crew that is able to go shoot scenes in parallel with the main scenes. So sometimes when you're working on a big movie, from a timing standpoint, you're able to split up some of your scenes and accomplish them at the same time to get more done faster. So that's what the second unit does. So if you have a second unit director, it means it's someone that the main director really trusts with their vision, and they're super in sync, and like they kind of know they're basically completely synced up on how everything should look and how things should be done because like the vision has to be singular.
That's cool.
So that shows like a great relationship between Peter
Yeah.
Jackson and Andy Serkis.
Wow.
Yeah. Trivia.
And
this Godzilla is
just,
350
some guy in Star Wars.
feet tall. So he wasn't so. Yeah, tallest.
And here I thought he was
Godzilla
just
to date.
Here I thought he was just Alfred Pennyworth.
That's true. Honestly, that's so funny. Like when I watched that movie, The Batman, such a great movie,
dude.
My first thought was, at last, like a movie where Andy Serkis gets to play a human character because he's so good.
Yeah.
Wow. I have to nerd out again. If you didn't
Robert
know,
Pattinson's Batman is that movie, man.
It is incredible. Andy Serkis, still talking about Andy Serkis. If you didn't know, he recorded audiobooks of The Hobbit and also The Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
And they're freaking incredible, dude. He does a different voice for every character, and he switches between them in real time. Like, every single character has a different voice. I can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I enjoyed those audiobooks so much.
Well, we are still doing the episode, about 2 hours in.
Yeah. Probably wrap it up, honestly.
I forgot where we were for a second, honestly. Guys, I'm so glad that you're still here. Hi. Hello. Hi. I'm Caleb.
Hi. Yeah,
Hi.
we can cut off the trivia. We should probably wrap up before 2 hours.
This is incredible. If you're still here, God forbid, I just want to thank you again. This has been us talking about the 2014 Legendary Pictures film Godzilla, starring Godzilla and not Bryan Cranston, and the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here. You can find us on Patreon for a completely unedited version of this show. You'll see my AirPods die. You'll see me switch these headphones and take a break and talk about beer for a second. And, yeah, anyways,
I have a final trivia item.
Please
follow up to the Halo music. Not to be confused with the video game Halo. I knew that was going to happen. I shouldn't have said it. Apparently, Gareth Edwards was like working on visualizations for like prevising the skydiving sequence, and he was listening to music on his iPod, and this track, Requiem, just happened to play while he was working on visualizations, and he was like, we have to put this in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I love that happened that way.
By pure luck.
All right, I'm done.
Well, I'm Caleb. This is the one about
Bryan.
Godzilla movies.
Yep.
And, the next movie we're going to be discussing is Shin Godzilla. My all-time favorite Godzilla movie. I do not think there has ever been a better Godzilla film. Simply because it is made purely out of the idea of making the nerdiest Godzilla movie possible. I'm so excited about this. You have no idea. I have been taking notes about this since October of last year. I've seen Shin Godzilla 47 times, and that is not an over-exaggeration. I've watched that movie 47 times.
Actually?
Yes, actually 47 times.
Oh my god, dude.
Like actually 47 times.
And
number 47 was last week. Yeah.
48 will be, well, maybe it'll be 50 by the time we record the next episode.
This is my favorite Godzilla movie. It is, I dare say, it is perfect. It is a perfect movie. The perfect Godzilla movie.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll see you on the next one. I can't believe we're still talking. Anything else before I fade us to black here?
No. Pitter patter.
Let's get at her. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.